speaking at a Hindu temple. Wonderful. At least they're a lot further in Queens than most Anglo-Saxons are. But I had to yell at them about the chapati, the rice, and the dal. I said, you all have diabetes. Why do you think you have diabetes? You're vegans and vegetarians here. So what do you think you eat? The mic is what?
That's better.
It's breaking up.
Oh, it's breaking up. Well, all right. Well, let's try to get, the faulty equipment straightened out. I don't need it. Do I need it? No.
Project.
Well, let's see. All right, there you go. Uh-oh, check. So anyway, let me just continue on here. Bottom line is that we're on, as always, an ever-going exploratory mission to constantly go one step further, one step deeper, and to understand better why Hippocrates for so long has seen so many perceived miracles. And there's no such thing really as miracles at all. What we see is the universe working the way it should. And we were just really lucky that we stumbled upon the way the universe works, and we've been allowing people to embrace it. So my mission started a year ago. Some of you that were here yesterday literally know about quantum human biology. It's the beginning of a project that I started to introduce in a couple of years to the academic community so we can come out of the melee of the failures we have in both allopathic medicine as well as alternative medicine. And what we've done is peeled away all of the facade where people think, everything is on a matter base. So we're going to describe that a little bit right now. Now here we go through the universe. And of course you perceive this is outside of you. And it's all over the place. But this is really inside of you. And that's been the biggest problem. That's okay. You can all hear me, can't you? So here we come up close. And we end up on this little tiny planet that you live on. Now here's the problem. The universe is an endless gathering of energy that we have named and labeled in our own restrictive imagery. As we draw closer to the Earth, the 5 basic components that establish order that we can identify are molecules, atoms, protons, neutrons, and the elusive string. Now, how many of you know what that string is? Every time the great minds, the great mathematicians do the work on this, we find out that there's a web behind structure that we can identify is there, but we cannot see it. And you're part of that web. The structure of matter. Molecules are the surface of any structure. That is like the shell of an egg. The second layer, the atom, is the interior with the nuclei being the proton and the neutron. Ultimately, this is all generated and possibly created by invisible strings that are quite likely to be the origin of the universe. Life as we know it and the expansive web of connectivity that governs all. Now, the most important thing we're talking about there is a connectivity to all the universe. Now, the Hindus this morning got this really well because one of my sacred loves is theology. And when I studied many years ago what they've been talking about for millennia, they always talk about the prana, the web of energy, the connectivity from one to all. There's no separation, no segregation, no difference between one person, one thing or another. That you're as much an ant as you are human. You're as much the invisible as you are structure. And all of this together has got to become part of the human understanding, because if it's not, we're going to find ourselves getting worse and worse and worse. Now here's actual photographs of the beginning of life. As life began with the evolution of time, what we know as vitamin C and nitrogen spawned microalgae. So what we have identified as vitamin C, we now know is a powerful element central to life on this planet that literally, along with nitrogen, created what you see there. And that life form created oxygen. So all other life forms could flourish and develop and evolve after that, including you. Microalgae contain chloroplast that drew the energy of the universe and one of its planets. the sun into its womb. Now, think about what has happened. That life itself said, I cannot flourish, I cannot grow, I cannot perpetuate. Think about the extraordinary wisdom of life. If I don't draw energy in from outside of where I am. Now, isn't that really your quest? To perpetuate your life, to grow your life, to expand your life? Because you are literally no different than the microalgae. And if you understood that, we'd be a lot better off than where we are today. What we have to understand is that the entire purpose of life is to grow, to develop, and to expand. Once we contract life, which humans have been spectacular at, you have been taught what not to do 98% of the time. You have been told what to do about 2% of the time. And they're legitimate numbers, by the way. So no wonder you find yourself confused and not knowing what to do. And you come to me quite often and you say, there's so many ideas, what should I do? Why? Because you don't use your heart. You use your brain. And the brain is the device that literally separates you from wisdom and knowledge. Now, what you have to understand about the brain is that it's like I would probably say it's more like the steering wheel in a car. Now, if I got you into a car and we got out here on the river and we started to drive 100 miles an hour, and I then proposed to you, do you want to be part of the mind? And you say, of course, yes. I want to have my mind acutely working when I'm here driving at 100 miles an hour. So I said, okay, I'm going to give you the wheel. Jump out of the car. Do you follow that? Or do you want to be part of the instinct, the soul, the heart, what really governs the universe? And if you say yes, I may throw the wheel out of the car, but I'm not going to throw you out of the car with a wheel. Now, which would your preference be? To be thrown out of the car with a wheel, or to stay in the car and take your chances? Well, that's a fairly obvious answer that you're going to give. And so chloroplast literally evolved so it could bring in the universe so that all other evolution could occur, including you. Now, this is actually bacteria. So when you're in the bathroom, please do what the sign says. This gave birth to oxygen so that a limitless wide array of other life forms could spring forth.
You need that thumping?
I hear it, I can't stop it.
Oh, you can't.
Bacteria and early life form gave birth to millions of other plants, creatures, and even killer microbes. There are many in the biological community today who believe the evolutionary morphing of bacteria creates 2/3 of our human body. How many of you know that? This is pretty much quantum science at this point that's concretely accepted. That when you get into the cutting edge of biology, not into medical school, but the cutting edge of biology, quantum thinking on this, we realize that the evolutionary process to create your physical anatomy was literally bacteria. Interesting, isn't it? So when we think, you and I think of bacteria, instantaneously our minds say wrong, bad, not bad. Most bacteria create life, they don't take life. Now look at this baby. That's a virus. Unfriendly microbes. Unfriendly microbes, like viruses, with their innate initiative to use human cells as their host, work as a double-edged sword by strengthening our anatomical resolve and at the same time battling our immune system. Isn't that amazing? That they're literally making you and breaking you at the same point. Now, when the developed immune cell system fails, this is a cause of disease and potential demise. So what we have learned, and what now all the great thinkers in the field of biology understand, is that really it's your fault 100% as to why we get sick. And we can blame exterior forces, but literally it's interior forces that allow you to be well. And that's why we see the power of thought is the #1 most profound and most successful way to let somebody get well. I've never seen a person completely, totally committed to survival that did not do so. But I have seen tens of thousands of people fumbling around, going to every other lecture, reading every other thing they do, not being committed to shit, and they go down, even without any major disease. Because if you do not have a solid determination of who you are, your values, what you're going to do, where you're going to be, with a clear, vivid vision, you will not survive. And you will allow microbes, which, by the way, are going to take you away in a natural process of evolution. Anything that is abnormal, that is working out of the norm, should be taken away. Do you understand that? As harsh as that sounds, you should go away if you're not contributing. And so why we see such illness at this point today is because nature has finally said, this is it. I'm going to stop putting up with the shit. But these people are so outrageous that they think they rule the planet, and we're going to start systematically eliminating this species. Many researchers and physicians on the cutting edge of cancer research now believe that viruses weaken the integrity of healthy cells enough to be the central cause of cancer. Up until about 8 months ago, I didn't concur with that. Now I do. They finally won me over. They worked on me for 28 years. And I finally got it, because I sat with a friend of mine, a colleague, and he said, yeah, you tell me your resistance to that. I said, well, you know, chemicals create these diseases, and heavy metals create these diseases, and emotional creates these diseases. He said, yes, but why are those diseases so readily capable of invading and killing people today? He said, very simply, if we understand, and I want you now to understand, that a virus lives in the cell. When you have a virus, it reams itself into the cell. And even after you kill the majority of viruses, you'll never kill 100%. That's why if you have herpes cold sores, you're always going to have herpes cold sores. You can put it in total remission, so it doesn't bloom, but you still will have a minimal amount of it. It's because you've now weakened the integrity of the cell. Now, if you're weak, are you easy to beat up? If you're strong, are you going to fight me back? So of course, I finally got it. It took me 28 years. I'm pretty slow. When combined with poor lifestyle habits, a plethora of man-made chemicals that pervade that environment, and psychological missteps, it is no wonder that cancer is now surpassing the #1 place as the deadliest disease. Now, those of you that spent time in my workshop yesterday, here is a bigger picture of cancer. It looks pretty beautiful till you know what it is, right? It's a very interesting thing. In fact, in 2008, cancer became the #1 cause of death in every province and territory in Canada. In short order, this will occur over the next decade in every modern so-called civilized nation. So we anticipate the next year, 2 years, or 3 years, the #1 killer in this country will be cancer. You know why? The wonderful Greeks, back when they had money, they were the great thinkers in the West. And literally, they called cancer cancer after a crab. Isn't that an interesting thing? Now, they didn't know anything like we're discussing today. You're light years ahead of their knowledge at this point. But what they knew is that when they opened up a body and they looked at cancer, it always looked like a crab. And interesting now, when we developed microscopes in the 19th century, and now we have these sophisticated electron microscopes, we can show you cancer, they were right. But they did that not from their head, they did it from their what? So they didn't grab the steering wheel, they stayed in the car. Co-inhabitants. Other life forms like amoebas, fungi, parasites, etc. all utilize different organisms as their ride through life. Some of this is positive, but when the host is out of balance and unable to minimize the growth of these fellow inhabitants, they can take over and erode until demise occurs. Now look at this one. Who is the uncivilized? Honest to God. I saw this dame as I was walking in here today. She probably is thinking, look at how sophisticated I look with a cigarette in my hand. It's unbelievable. We humans are supposedly the most evolved of all creatures, and somehow perceive ourselves as the rulers not only of the earth, but of our entire universe. This flawed concept has thrown a figurative wrench into the extraordinary balance that existed before we presented ourselves 100,000 years ago. Now, I picked the number 100,000 years, and we briefly mentioned this to a group yesterday. We now know that 350,000 years ago, there were 3 types of species. That those 3 types of species, Homo sapiens being one of them, literally came together and created people. We're now getting to the refined area in biological anthropology, where we now know that different cultures in different parts of the world came more so from one of those species or another. So when you are in certain areas where you see people like our culture that perceive ourselves as the most civilized, and I actually believe we're the least civilized. Because the most civilized means one thing: you're insecure. So you're going to walk around arrogantly, put your chest out and tell us, look at how much we have. Well, having something doesn't mean civility, by the way. You know, Attila the Hun had a lot too. Adolf Hitler had a lot too. So having a lot is no indication of you being civilized. Matter of fact, the Roman Empire, the English Empire, and now the American Empire are the most uncivil humans who have ever lived on this planet. Why? Because we're the most estranged from our what? Our heart. We are literally the most estranged from our heart. That's why you're willing, when you get cancer as an example, to go to a doctor and take nuclear war, which we know causes cancer. And nobody ever questions it. Nobody ever thinks it. Now, can you imagine being that estranged from your instinct? That you say, doctor, please, I have a tumor. Give me something that's probably going to cause other tumors. Great idea. Or when you have, for instance, a virus or a cold, and you're a little feeble, so you feel insecure, so you go down to the emergency room or to your doctor, and she or he gives you antibiotics. 80% of antibiotics that are prescribed are given for viruses. Antibiotics do not work on viruses. When I was 18 years old in 101, they taught me antibiotics do not kill viruses. 80% of antibiotic prescribed is given to you for virus. Well, please, doctor, give me some. I'll tell you what it does give. A weakened immune system, so that now you're even more vulnerable for the what? The microbes. So take a good look at that and let that embed in your consciousness. This is even a better one. Who's the most civil in this one? I think we should go in reverse, don't you? We always call these ignorant creatures. I don't think they're that ignorant. They don't have a way to press a red button and completely wipe us all out. They don't have racism, sexism, hatred, war. They don't have any of that. They're not polluting the planet. They're not wearing perfume with formaldehyde that will pickle your brain. They're not smoking. I never saw a pig smoke a cigarette, did you? And we even blame the bastards on the swine flu. They can't talk, that's why. You know? If a pig could talk, they'd say, get the hell out of here. What are you talking about? I caused the swine flu. You're the swine, they'd say. And look at this. As soon as we started to look a little sophisticated, you know, the babes in here like this. You know, this guy looks like a hunk, right? Wouldn't you like your husband or boyfriend to look like that?
No, yeah.
No, you wouldn't, because look what that bastard has in his hand. So as soon as we became upright, what did we do? We had to protect ourselves. And the only need for protection is when you feel totally, absolutely out of touch and insecure. Gandhi eliminated the English Empire by completely, absolutely utilizing his heart. Now that was hard for a guy that was educated in the English law schools. You know how cerebral you have to be to get through the English law schools? Pretty cerebral. Smartest people in the world go to those schools. He walks out and uses his heart. He says, hey, you know, we have a lot more people than those English. Man, we could just stand up and beat the hell out of them. But what he said is love the hell out of them. And before you know it, the English didn't know why, but the vibration and the frequency changed so much in that country that they were suppressing. They were jumping on the boat so fast they couldn't get out of there quick enough. And that's what happens when you use instinct. The real fiasco began approximately 10,000 years ago when our brains evolved. In my opinion, through a mutation of bacterial balance. And boy, that was the worst mutation that happened in the body. This manifested into modern humans who, by misusing their will, became self-destructive, which then began to implode the biology and the universe around them. So once we started to think, the shit really hit the fan. That's when the guns came out. That's when we started to say, this is my piece of land. And we started to build fence. We started to call things countries. We started to say, oh, those peasants over there. Think about most of the worst wars, not most, but all of the worst wars in history were fought in the name of who? God. Then they blame God. You know why? God doesn't talk either. If he does, I mean, our former president said God told him to go to war. He must have the wrong chapter. But God doesn't talk. So we blame anyone. The poor pig we blame. Before we blamed the chickens, the chicken flu. Now we have God. God told us to come over here and slaughter your people. Now this is literally your cell dividing. What has maintained our biological form, the cell, withstood our early endeavors into insanity. But since the Industrial Revolution and the explosion of the population accumulated into 7 billion distorted minds, we have accelerated the destruction of our cell at a rate of 15 million times faster. Want me to repeat that?
Yeah.
15 million times faster destruction of the human cell than we had 150 years ago. Now think about that. Now this is not my opinion, by the way. This is quantum biology. So when we put in petri dishes human cells and expose them to what you and I are exposed to, that all man created, all man perceived, we are now assaulting your cells and killing them 15 million times better than we did 150 years ago, when, by the way, there were no television, no cell phones, no jet planes, no automobiles, everything was organic, all of the clothing was not synthetic, but natural. You only had one guy that you really knew a lot, and that was your family. You hung out with your neighbors. The security level was incredibly high because people felt very, very confident. Their world was maybe small, but their confidence was gigantic. No different than when I recently went up once again, which I do about every 2 years, and speak to the Amish people. You know, we all think they're weird. Get into that community. They're some of the most real people I've ever been around in my life. They look me in the eye, they shake my hand, they never bullshit one bit, and they tell me the truth. If I ask them a question, they never waver. I've never talked to an Amish person who ever exaggerated, embellished, or changed the subject. You, on the other hand, forget it. Caustic breakdown. When the brain's degradation arrives, in great part due to malnourishment, B12, essential fatty acids, B vitamins, and most important, dehydration, and the inclusion of man-caused heavy metals and man-made chemicals, all that the affected person touches is cross-circuited and thrown into a melee of confusion. So why we contaminate everything we touch and we destroy our entire world is we are completely nuts. But we have created and established indoctrinated cultures of craziness that we accept as normality. It's really nuts. We have the world filled with institutions that are the opposite of what they should be. You have religious institutions that teach you hatred and separation. Now, I don't know what your perception of, quote, God or the universe is, but I'll tell you, it's not hatred and separation. Because the one thing in every theology I've ever studied in my entire life says we are the God. Not we may be God, or a priest or a rabbi, minister, or witch doctor has to get me to God, but I'm God. Now that's a scary goddamn thought for most of you. Because if you're the God that you've been so far, you don't want God, do you? But it doesn't mean you have an inability to become completely, absolutely immersed in truth. Because what God is, in my perception, is living truth, even if it's not at all times absolutely correct. But having the brevity, the hope, the happiness, and the security to proceed in the best possible way you can. That's God. Not perfection. That's a man-created thing. Because we're so imperfected, we're searching for, the fountain of perfection. That's actually photographs of caustic breakdown. So when you have negative thought, this is what happens in your bloodstream. And we pick this up, by the way, with our biofrequency testing units that every guest is tested with when they arrive at Hippocrates, called Undemed. When I was in California beginning to write a book in December, I also purchased the state-of-the-art unit that will be in the next 2 months that's 10 times more effective than the best biofrequency. And I said, this is a passionate unit, I love it. A bioengineer in Germany was losing his wife to deadly stage 4 cancer. Nothing he could find would help. He and his colleagues put together a biofrequency unit. Of course, we can't say this here. It's only here looking at things. But anyway, not only did it look at his wife, but his wife is now healthy. And so, if we can take this caustic breakdown out of your body, as we've been doing manually, and with electromagnetics, and with cold lasers, and with psychotherapy, and with a diet that's completely abundant with life, that resonates with the same life that God and the universe resonates with. It brings you back up to the frequency that you're meant to work at psychologically, physically, and by the way, spiritually. And if you don't have that life force in you, and if you don't have that frequency in you, it is hopeless to try to become completely truthful. It is hopeless for you to become absolutely open and conscious. Because you have to have energy to be free enough to be open and be secure in the arms of God, rather than try to be in the arms of your intellect. Now we're going to go in and see the brains of the cell. This is really interesting stuff. How many of you knows about mitochondria? I'm going to get an insight. This is literally mitochondria. Now watch when thought goes through the brain. This is literally processes inside of the cell itself, with mitochondria being the brain of the cell, or the figurative brain of the cell, and you're going to start to see thought patterns. And I'm going to show you, point out certain types. Some of these are literally negative thoughts, positive thoughts, neutered thoughts, relaxation. These are little elements that are moving through the brain itself. Now, do you see the different lights that you see that almost look like parasitic activity? These are actually thoughts going to the receptor sites of the cell. You see that? Now, I don't know what part of the cell that's affecting, but some of those would go to the part of the cell where stress is, and some would go where relaxation and peace is. Now watch how this all works together. They systematically work, and this is real, by the way. These are illustrations of what literally we've learned with electron microscopes. This is literally, see how that connected to that? Yeah. So most of us pull in, we realize even the most optimistic, successful, healthy, happy person, we've trained our minds through the mitochondria, which you're going to be interested in a minute to learn what it really is, to take negative thoughts as normal and to not absorb with the receptor sites positive thoughts and security as normal. So we reject security and positivity, and we accept negativity at a much higher level. Now this is where we're delving into now, where we actually dissect brain itself. Now let's give nature a giant hand on that one. Now, a vastly understood aspect of cell structure, being the figurative brains of the cell, mitochondria have the ability to outfox and supersede the assaults made upon healthy cells. If it wasn't for our mitochondria, we'd all be dead now. We would have perished now. Now, as you see the exceptional intelligence of this parasitically created life, what do I mean by that? Mitochondria was not part of human evolution. It was a parasite that looked at the human creature, the human species, and said, hey, this would be a nice ride to take. And was so advanced over humans at that particular stage, was wiser than humans at that particular stage, morphed into literally the brains of the cell. Now think about that. So you're actually being robotically manipulated by a parasite that was not part of the evolutionary process of the human experience. Isn't that interesting? 2/3 of your bacteria start rethinking yourself. The other thing is that when you're sitting here listening to me, and all these sounds start to become words, and they mean something, and they feel something to you, literally it's a parasite that's making that happen. Not because I say so, because we now know so. Because when we check the DNA of mitochondria, it has nothing to do with human DNA. Never have they ever once found it working with human DNA. Isn't that interesting? Now, doesn't mean aliens are getting you. What it means is, shit, we're lucky that damn thing took over, because we were really on our way to a collision. That's what you should say. Thank you. Thank you for that. We seemingly have spent the majority of our time in our species' existence creating a viable way of suicide. Through responsible personal choices, we can bring about a new age that will normalize this paramount degradation. Now, on the wall of my office, how many of you remember being in my office? None of you were in my office? You pay that big money and never asked to see me? Well, at least you came into my office. You remember seeing this? I was out in Colorado a few years ago, and of course I admire a lot of things I can't afford. So I was in one of those explorations. I use a lot of these art galleries as a place of entertainment. So I'm in this gallery that has only fossils, and of course I'm in Vail, Colorado, where they have more money than they know what to do with. And I'm looking at the one I like the most, which of course was always the most expensive one. And on this fossil there's two creatures. The oldest creature in the world and a much younger one, 100 million years younger. And as I was walking out, the young man said to me, "Oh, I see you are admiring that. Would you like to buy it?" I said, "I couldn't buy that if I, sold my house to you." And he said, "This is the worst year I've ever had. Let me run to the back and show you how much I paid for it. Can you pay that?" I said, "I can't pay you all at once that." He said, "Let me give it to you on time." And why I wanted that is the minute I saw that, I flashed how I'd have that on the wall in my office, right next to where the guests sit in front of me. You know why? Because every single day, people come into my office brokenhearted, saying to me things like, "I'm going to die, I have a year to live, I'm so sick, my leg fell off." And I try to get levity, and it works really well, by the way. I said, "Now let's close our eyes, take a breath," and I'd have them shut their eyes and take a breath. And I said, "Now look to your left over there. Do you see this creature, by the way? Trilobite. The trilobite is 550 million years old. 550 million years old. Matter of fact, after blue-green algae, which was created by chloroplasm, accepting the energy of the what? The universe. What crawled out of the water was this. It has nothing to do with any creature that exists today, by the way, but that's what it looked like. And I said, "And you're whining about your little incidental problem now?" I said, "If you live 100 years, wouldn't that be exceptional?" "Oh yeah, I'd like to live 100 years. But the doctor told me." I said, "Get the hell over the doctor." This thing crawled out of the ocean because the universe allowed it to happen. What are you going to allow the universe to do? To kill you? Because the universe isn't ready to kill you. The only problem is that you were given a will, and you're the only one capable of killing yourself. Now, do you want to kill yourself? That's perfectly fine, because we can do it right now. I said, right here in the office, if you're wanting to kill yourself, I'll help you. You want to do that? "Oh, no, I came here because I want to live." I said, "Well, if you want to live, why are you whining about dying? You're using one drop of energy, thinking about your demise. You are not alive. If you're using any energy thinking about your disorder, you are going to perpetuate and grow that disorder. Because as you just saw with mitochondria, they have saved you so far, but we are getting so negative and assaulting our bodies at such a high level, 15 million times more than we did 150 years ago after the Industrial Revolution started. We're at the breaking point. And so you can have the strength of a 550 million year old creature, or you can be whining and screaming about how all these poor things happen to you. Poor me. There's no poor you. There's you the asshole, or you the courageous person. That's it. Which side do you want to be on? Am I an asshole? Yes, I'm part of the... Well, that's 98% of the population. The asshole population. Then you have the 2% over here who are standing up, having fun, enjoying themselves. What recession? There's a recession? A friend of mine came to me in Paris. He said, "Oh, I love these French people. They're always so serious. They're really not serious, but they make believe they're serious. That's what I like about them." Dr. Clement. They always think I'm French, So I say 100 words over and over again. "Oh," he said, "so he's French is so good." Yeah, I've learned them over the last 50 years. My God. "Have you have a grand problem with the recession?" I said, "No, I haven't known that we have a recession. Recession is a state of mind. Do you understand that? And this is, you like to put news on. The economy is going bad. The world is falling apart. The bomb is ready to blow up. Oh my God. Now, can you imagine assaulting the mind with that all day long? And you can't get enough of that shit. Some of you even watch Fox News. They make it as they go along. You can see these idiots who don't have brains, you know. So they're going along, they're making it up. What else will we say? Let's make some wild stuff up. Oh yeah, Obama's an alien. Yeah, I knew he was an alien. Look at him, he's black. That's what you white folks are saying. Oh, not you, you're liberals. Get over this bullshit. We are perfect people who have endless resources to do good. This begins by self-love that can be supported by making instinctually wise food choices and developing fruitful relationships and genuine pursuits. Most of you are on doing something that has nothing to do with reality for you. You have no passion, no fulfillment, you're just doing it like mental masturbation. Find something you like to do. That's a genuine pursuit. If not, you're going to be taken out of the equation. And thank God, it can't happen quick enough for me. Get you out of the way. Unfortunately, we allow cultural indoctrination and our biological disaster to mold us into lesser people. We are not people of the God, we are people of the lesser God. That's what we are. This is a woman that came. This is the biggest nut that ever came to Hippocrates. When this woman came here, my staff is dealing with people all day long. They don't get ruffled. This woman ruffled the entire staff. She had all my 160 staff members running around in circles in the first 24 hours. She's so mean. She's so this. Nothing. We can't help her. She did everything but urinate on their foreheads. Let's read about her. Miss Salam, who by the way is a New Yorker now. That's why she was such a pain in the ass. I love you anyway, I'm one of you. Took her life back. Now, that's what people do at Hippocrates. We give you an opportunity to take your life back. We don't do a damn thing for you, other than educate you, support you, love you, tell you the truth, hope, slap you enough in your head so you wake up. And that's it.
That's a lot.
And you can, by the way, take your life back. But I can't do it for you. You know, as a father of 4, I looked at those kids in the eyes when they were, I wanted to do everything. I'll do anything for my children, but I can't do anything for them. Other than be what? A loving support and hopefully a good image for them. A truth teller for them. She was in a wheelchair, riddled with psoriasis and severe depression, contemplating suicide. We had the staff on a suicide watch for the first 5-6 days. I don't make any of this up, people. Those of you who've been at Hippocrates know that this is common. We have really, really healthy people that come. Last month it was Serena Williams. How many of you saw Serena Williams on CNN with wheatgrass behind her a week ago? Saying that I thought I'd never in my entire life work again. And now she's in the Olympics.
Wow.
She also endured invasive Lyme's, systemic cancer, and crippling arthritis. She was in a wheelchair. In a mere 3 months, she eradicated all of her maladies and banished all of the medications that she had been on and depended for decades. She then hopped on a plane to the Alps, where she skied for the first time in years. This is not a rarity, but what each of you possess when you are willing to respect yourself and to the very life that was given to you. So remember when I said to you that you need to be strong enough to fall in the arms of what? God. This is what happens. This is not miraculous. This is normal once you let the universe work for you. If you think of yourself exceptional to the universe, that was a month difference. That's what her entire body was like for years, and it bled. 1 month later, that was it. Look at her legs.
Wow.
That's why she couldn't walk. When she walked, she would cry. She was in pain. 3 weeks later, her legs were clear. She just came to us this year. We couldn't get off the bicycles. Through evolution, by the way, I never even planned this. I don't tell the guests, but every guest is given a bicycle. So they're riding around on bicycles. Some of them had never ridden a bicycle or haven't ridden one in 40 years. They're riding it around, happy as can be. And I asked her, why aren't you doing anything? She said, I am. I'm riding around like a little girl, and I hadn't been a little girl ever in my life. And I want to be a little girl now. And I said, good. If that's your therapy, I'm along with you. So I went out and took a bike ride with her. Good shepherdship. As Chief Seattle stated, we are shepherds of the earth, not emperors. And it is for us to be sensible from our heart outward to all other life. The consumption of animal fare and the milk from their breast is one bizarre example of how we are estranged from reality. By relinquishing this abnormality, we can show exceptional respect and allow the planet to begin mending. Human connectivity. As our living sperm engages the feminine egg, enzymes spark human life. From that moment forth, we are fully responsible as either givers or takers. Which side do you want to be on? We come alive by connectivity, and it is fundamental for us to continue that connection emotionally, physically, spiritually, universally, and ultimately. Natural wisdom. Even the coral of the sea knows its rightful place and acts with utter perfection, allowing the web of life to be represented in their beauty, wisdom, and contribution. What's really interesting is that the ocean, you can see, propels the life of the coral. When I go close to a coral, I've been diving since 1957, and I go near it, it goes completely in. It's like it was invisible. It's like it was never there. And it reacts to the plankton of the cell. The tapestry from 100 trillion cells, this life must maintain a high frequency or we begin to stumble at every level. We're almost done. They want to throw us out. You want to go? No. Tapestry of life. Each microorganism, most of which are invisible, contributes to the tapestry of wholeness that makes up our planetary ecosystem. This ecosystem can only flourish when each of these organisms is acknowledged and supported in their contribution. Isn't that beautiful? Look at your blood cells. We started with the universe, now we go into your body, that's the universe. Give me a minute, buddy.
I really have to cut you off.
We started late. Oh, we started late.
Yeah, you had the trouble with the
Give him a
microphone.
minute.
Just sit back for a minute, we're going to be fine.
People bow.
We're almost there. As you can see, even the inside of your body looks like the universe on the outside of your body. So the message I give you today is that all healing is universal healing. And it comes down to this one thought. If it weren't for grief, we would all be enlightened. God bless you, be enlightened, I'll see you at the booth.